Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It is me, Awande, and it's so good to have you back with me. Do watch, do like, do share, do comment, do subscribe, but most of all, go ahead and do you. It feels so weird filming a sit-down video only because it's been like years and years. But I felt like since the borders are open again here in China, it would obviously make sense for me to move towards the content that I actually started with. And that was basically me trying to make sure that you guys have all the information you need if you are interested in coming over to China, especially if you want to be a teacher just like me. So the other day I was on the interwebs, on the internet, on Beyonce's web, and I stumbled onto a post that literally had Twitter shaking. South African Twitter, that is. And that was a post about how much money you supposedly, allegedly make if you teach English here in China. Alright, I think you guys should be aware that there are a couple of factors that play a role in how much you should expect to earn if you are thinking about teaching here in China. And I think I can sum it down to these three main factors. Number one is your experience/qualifications. I'm going to start with experience first. Obviously, if you have experience teaching, that gives you an advantage compared to somebody that has no experience at all. It's obvious because they want teachers who can teach and know how to teach. So it would be obvious that if you have experience, you can definitely earn that 50k, if not more. Also, if you are a teacher, in terms of your qualifications, even if you don't have experience just as yet, if you just graduated with like a B.Ed, then that also gives you a slight advantage as to somebody that also just graduated but was studying something different. For example, I did B Science, like I did a Bachelor of Science. So if it was between the two of us, like, and you have education, then obviously you would have that slight advantage. So that is number one. Number two would be the city that you choose to work in. Now, I feel like this actually plays kind of a huge role, because if you move here and you decide to go to one of like the first tier cities, such as Beijing or Shanghai, you can definitely expect to earn a lot more than somebody that would go to a smaller city. For example, I lived in Zhangjiagang for a year, which was, I want to say, a tier 3 city, and the cost of living in that city in itself was way lower than the cost of living in a first tier city. However, if you do choose to go to one of those bigger cities, then you have to keep in mind that the cost of living there is significantly higher. So even though you'll be earning, let's say 25,000 RMB, you'd still have a lot of expenses, especially if you have to find your own apartment, pay your own utilities, also stuff like groceries, traveling. These are all accumulated expenses, and they definitely add up over time. And even though you are making that much money, your expenses will also be proportionate to somebody that is making that much money and is living in that kind of city. So be careful where you choose to go. Even though it can be super exciting to be in the bigger cities, also keep in mind that the expenses and the cost of life there is a bit higher. I would suggest that you live in like middle ground and you travel to those cities every now and again, and you don't actually live there, because I heard rent, for example, in Shanghai is crazy. So yeah. And then finally we move on to point number 3, or factor number 3, and that would basically be the school or the job that you take. And by that, I know that we're all obviously at least talking about like ESL, we're talking about teaching English, that is. But if you come here, you can actually find yourself in different roles as a teacher. So you could either be an ESL teacher, right, which is, I guess, the most popular option. And with this job, you could You could be teaching at a training center or a kindergarten or a high school. Actually, every type of school takes ESL teachers. However, you could also be a homeroom teacher for a kindergarten, and that's slightly different from ESL. I think I'll probably make a different video where I compare and contrast like ESL teaching and homeroom teaching, because right now I'm a homeroom teacher, but I have been an ESL teacher before, so I know the differences between the two. And you could also find yourself as a subject teacher. For example, you could be teaching English or math or chemistry or any other subject in, for example, a high school, a primary school, a middle school. So you could find yourself in that position as well if you come here to teach. So if you teach as an ESL teacher, you obviously make good money. Yeah, we've discussed. If you are a homeroom teacher, I want to say you probably end up earning a little bit more, if I'm not mistaken. Again, depending on the city and your qualifications, only because this has so much more like roles within it. Like, you're not just an English teacher, you're doing so much more than teaching English. So I would assume that you get a little bit more. At least I know that I'm earning more right now as a homeroom teacher than I was as an ESL teacher. And last, I talked about subject teaching, and subject teaching, as far as I'm aware, is where you can earn the most if you come to China and decide to teach a specific subject. And that would be basically like normal teaching, I think, back home, where you were maybe a maths teacher back home and you come and you decide to carry on and become a maths teacher here in China. I've heard that you make big bucks, even more than that 50K that was shaking the internet. So yeah, those are basically the main factors that will contribute to the amount of money that you'll get paid, basically your salary. And those are definitely some things you have to consider. Personally, I know, or I'm aware, that if you come on your first year with like little to no experience, you might have to start a little bit lower than that and just work your way up. At least that was the case for me. So if you basically get an offer that isn't that money, don't worry about it. You can work your way up. I also find it really weird that so many people were offended. Guys, what is wrong? What she said was not a lie. It's like, it's actually really possible. So yeah, I hope you guys found this informative. And I will definitely see you again in my next upload. For now, 我爱你，拜拜。